I noticed when I first read the whole about the book and why to come, there was this thing that said uh, uh, that you dispel 2,000 years of shared shame, guilt, and ignorance to a fulfilling life. And I know for me, it's always been about like almost feeling guilty about wanting my own and reaching my own desires and reaching my own pleasure, and always wanting to satisfy, either my partner or my ex-wife, whatever, anything that had to do with. I derived more pleasure from seeing somebody else having that pleasure come out of them. And over this last relationship that I had, I finally got deeper in touch with that, like fulfilling my own needs. And so I don't know if you could speak to that a little more, because I feel like I'm there, but
Right.
there's a little guilt attached to that as far as I go. So I haven't read the book or anything. Maybe I'll find out more. But while I got you
Yeah, right.
here, yeah,
Well,
it is.
you're touching on a really what I would call a erogenous no-fly zone.
Okay. Good or
It's,
bad.
it's not something that we talk about in public very much, but it's definitely true.
Right.
When we think about pleasure, there's this, unlike happiness, there's this discomfort. And it seems like we're just below the level of awareness. But if we're honest, we go, yeah, I do feel uncomfortable about pleasure, which suggests that there is something twisted here. Why should I feel uncomfortable about something that feels good?
Right.
And uh, and we all have it to some a greater or lesser extent. So it turns out when you look into, well, where did that feeling of guilt and shame come from? When you look at other animals, dogs, cats, what have you, they don't seem to be burdened by these feelings of shame and guilt and, oh, do I deserve this, not deserve this,
Right.
etc. Right? They're natural, and we are, whether we like to admit it or not, animals as well. So where did we get this unnatural feeling? And that turns out to be an historical event that can be traced to a single individual who was named, and this is in Western culture. I can't speak to other cultures. I might speculate, but in the Western culture anyhow, it goes back to a fellow named St. Augustine. And about the 400 CE, during the formation of the Catholic Church, early Christianity. And St. Augustine was a brilliant guy, and he was a very devout Christian. There was no doubt about that. But he had this problem, which was he couldn't control his spontaneous erections. And that troubled him.
Funny.
Like he had to, for a normal person would have just like shrugged it off with a pint of ale and a roll in the sack or something. It's like, but for a deep thinker like Augustine, he needed to find a theological explanation. And that explanation became known as original sin, that we are born in sin. And and that's why we can't control our biological functions. And this was crucial to him because he was tormented by lust, and sadly, when I read this news article of the 21-year-old boy or young man who, killed 8 people in Atlanta because he had some kind of sexual addiction, he said, or a hang up, that goes right back to St. Augustine. And his dilemma, St. Augustine's dilemma, and this young boy's dilemma were the same, but they took obviously very different solutions. So yeah, Rico, your experience is the experience of all of us.
Okay.
because if you swim in polluted waters, you can't help but get stained.
Okay.
And learning how to, once the value of understanding the history and some of the philosophy behind this is then you go, well, gee, if this was just thought up, well, then we can unthink it. And that unthinking is really what the point of the major point of the book is, to begin to rethink pleasure and go, maybe I don't really know what it is because of the layers of guilt and shame and false assumptions. And so I am going to find out.
Yeah.
I'm going to start paying attention to pleasure, the pleasure I feel when another person is enjoying my company, which is part of this renewable pleasure, the pleasure that I feel when I'm receiving pleasure from another person. And in that inquiry, I can guarantee you that it will transform you. It will free you from this.
Okay. Perfect.
Yeah, you're not alone. I mean,
Okay.
we're all there in one form or another. We have these fig leaf moments, going to the bathroom, getting out of the shower, what have you.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I feel like I've come out of that, so I want to continue this. So I figure this book is going to help me along and just be in touch with that more. As much as I love this, make sure somebody else is all nice and pleasured up and down, but I like to enjoy it myself without that whole just having that the mainstay.
Yeah,
just diving.
absolutely.
So thank you.
Actually, I have a story about that exact thing, meeting a fellow in Chiang Mai, northern Thailand. And as I was telling him about what my book was about, he goes, you're putting into words something that I've always felt but never spoke about, this feeling of shame, guilt, uneasiness around it.
Okay.
So yeah, thanks for asking the question.
Thank you.